We have what's called a flood risk assessment tool. Check my flood risk on our website. So we have, we generate about 200 leads a month off of this, and it's built so much trust that even state agencies and some nonprofits that focus on disaster resilience have started using it to help people understand what risk is when they're building a property.
You're listening to the Endless Customers podcast, brought to you by the team at Impact. Endless Customers is the proven system to become the most known and trusted brand in your market. If you want to start to learn the principles of Endless Customers and how you can implement them in your business, pick up a copy of Endless Customers, a national bestseller wherever books are sold. Ready to start implementing Endless Customers in your business? Talk to Impact about how our coaching program can help you implement Endless Customers to success. And if you want to experience Endless Customers in person, do not miss our upcoming conference, Endless Customers Live, in Chicago, March 30th through April 1st, 2026. Registration is now open. And now, onto the show. Here's your host, Alex Winter.
In any business where the topics are complex, clarity becomes a form of service. Buyers want to understand what something will cost, what options they have, and how those decisions affect them. They want answers in plain language so they can move forward with confidence. Clarity is not something that you can claim. You have to show it. And the companies that take the time to explain complicated ideas in a simple and honest way are the ones that buyers trust. Today, we're talking with someone who has made that commitment a key part of how he serves his clients. I'm joined by Chris Greene, president of the Flood Insurance Guru. Chris has been using the Endless Customer System to break down complicated insurance topics by personalizing information for each market and helping buyers understand what matters most. In this episode, we will talk about how Chris uses content to simplify complex information, how he uses AI and localized data to make that content more helpful, and how this approach has changed the way clients engage with his business. Let's get right into it. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. This is your first time on the show, right?
It is.
Excellent. We see each other at all the Endless Customers events, and we get to see each other in person, but this is really cool to have you in front of our audience and give people a chance to just hear all the cool things that you're working on and the experiences that you've had over the years. So thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. All right, well, let's get into it. So the first question I have here is an interesting one, right? It says, what made you realize it was time to simplify the way you explain complex topics to your clients? Because you do a lot of complex stuff. So how did you figure out, and what made you have that moment of like, I got to figure out a way to build trust, keep it real, and explain this in a way that's clear and succinct to people?
Actually, for me, it was a personal experience.
Really?
I went to buy a house in a flood zone and I almost lost my house.
Oh, wow.
I was given the wrong information by my insurance agent. My real estate agent wasn't sure what to do. My lender couldn't really help me much. Two weeks before closing, there's not much we can do. I'm like, there's got to be a better solution here. There's no communication. There's no education. Like, nobody knows what the other one's doing. And I'm getting all this misinformation. If this is happening to me, who's someone who's been in the industry for more than a decade, what's the traditional consumer feeling?
Yeah.
They're probably feeling frustration, anxiety. How do I remove these things? How do I simplify these things so much that nobody ever has to experience what I experienced? And that was back in 2012 and 2018. I went flood only after literally talking to people who had lost everything. Started traveling the country, answering all these questions. But I was like, how do we simplify things so much that people don't just feel comfortable? It builds the trust, but they're like, man, that was way easier than I thought it should have been. And so that's basically what I did in 2018 and 2019. Traveled the whole country, addressing people's questions while staying in their neighborhoods. So if I was addressing an issue in Arizona, I was staying in an Arizona neighborhood. And so that's kind of how it started back in 2018, 2019, when I started doing a video a day. Ended up doing, 1,500 videos in 1,500 days.
Wow, 1,500 videos. Wow.
On YouTube, simply answering these people's questions.
Yeah.
And then I started blogging with it, podcasting with it, and really, things started getting a little more complex. But I was like, all right, how do we keep these guardrails and not get distracted, but really, truly answer the question here?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I like, too, that you went to the different locations. So if you were talking to people in Arizona, you went out to Arizona. What made you decide to do that? Or what was like the mentality or thinking behind like being in that space?
It was some kind of barrier that was dropped, we discovered. I'm not a big green screen guy, never have been. I will use it if I have to. Mm-hmm. But what I discovered is people are like, wait a minute, this guy's standing in my neighborhood and he's answering my questions. That's somebody I can trust.
Wow.
Now with AI you could probably do it a lot more advanced and people probably wouldn't know, but I don't know, to me it's still trusting of, wait a minute, when I can actually stand there and show them, hey, here's the issue specifically here. They're like, oh, that's the same issue I had.
Yeah.
They understand now that, hey, They're along the journey with me. They're not trying to sell me something and push me something. They're really just simply trying to guide me, which goes back to that story framework.
Yeah, absolutely. Story brand is a big deal. And I just find it fascinating, and I think it's very relatable, at least for me. I don't want to speak for our listeners and our audience out there, but you had a problem. You had dealt with a flood. You almost lost everything, which is terrible. I can't even imagine. And then you took that as a way to leverage that into helping other people. And I think those are when the best ideas seem to happen, is when there's a problem that other people are feeling and facing and nobody knows what to do. That's when the magic really happens. So I just admire you and congratulate you on solving that. Yeah. And also, insurance is a complex thing. Every time we go into open enrollment here, which I know is a different type of insurance, but whenever we go into open enrollment here, I kind of like, it's the blue screen. I just kind of go into like zombie mode, because it's way too much and complex to understand. So how do you help people understand those things, right? So how do you take that very technical stuff, because you're an expert in your field and in your insurance? How do you like bridge those gaps so that it's relatable and understandable for people?
To me, what plays a major role is story.
Okay.
We've got to find a scenario, an example that people can relate to in their current lives. We've got to find a way that, as we're telling this, it's not about us, it's about them, but kind of guiding them through this. There's ups and there's downs, like every story has. And I find that, what I joke with people, I said some of the best storytellers in the world are pastors, because they have to be. I've never met a bad pastor who's a bad storyteller. Mm-hmm. And so I just think whatever issue it is, we have to find a way to take the intangible, which is insurance, and make it tangible. And we do that through story.
Right. Story's the way that we all connect as human beings. And that's how we pass on history and lessons and life and everything. So I think that's just a great root way to get to building trust with people.
Today, right? In 2025, or 2025, how we've done it is basically I've cloned myself. We're using AI.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I want to hear more about that. Yeah, tell me about that. What you're doing with AI, because you're doing a lot of like on the leading edge of this AI revolution that's happening.
Yeah, I had all this knowledge from almost 20 years in the industry. Well, this knowledge is great, but how do I get this knowledge out of my head and either on paper or somewhere where everybody else can find it?
Right.
And that's actually what I did with Delphi AI. And, George, I know George B. Thomas has built this as well. We spent probably 2 years doing this, and we went through every blog, every video that I'd done over the course of about a decade, answering all these questions. So now, and I even used my voice. I've used my AI avatar to basically bring it back. So if someone asks a question on our website, it's my voice returning it. If my team's asking a question, it's my voice returning it. So if I'm in a meeting like this, my team can go to my clone first, then come to me. Mm-hmm. And the purpose there was, how do we transfer that knowledge?
So do you also feel like psychologically it helps that it's your voice and your tone? So even if they're talking to your avatar, it's still you in a sense, right? So does that help them maybe find solutions to the issues they're trying to get to, so that they don't have to come to you? It does,
because I even built in dad jokes to it.
Which you are the king of dad jokes. You have some good ones. Yes. Yeah.
So, the whole point was, hey, how do I build in my full personality here?
Yeah.
In fact, I don't have it on right now, but I have a shirt that says AI Chris. And the reason is the way I had built it so good is that I had to start showing up in a shirt that said AI Chris, so they knew whether it was AI or not. Because I would have my AI avatar to show up to these meetings, and they weren't really sure if it was me or not.
Wow. How did you create the avatar? I love that you're talking about personalizing it in a way that adds character, so that it's not just like a robotic version of you doing an avatar. Like you gave it personality. How did you do that?
Well, with having as many videos as I've done, it actually made it easy.
Okay.
Because I could have a video of me sitting in a kitchen. If I'm explaining coverage about a home, like I always tell people, when it comes back to emotional video, and I tell even my marketing clients I work with, look, if a video's on mute, I want my background to tell you what the video's about, so you take the video off mute. What's the same thing with AI Avatar? If I'm talking about something in a home, it might be me sitting at my kitchen table. Or it might be me sitting in the middle of my kitchen. If I'm doing something for apartment investors, I might be standing in front of an apartment. I want the background to relate to what it is that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that way it helps them visualize, hey, what could I lose? What's at risk? Oh, this is something that is value to me, and this is actually something I need to watch.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good tip for everyone out there watching and listening. I also have a question here about ARM data and breaking down the prices around that. And this is a very technical piece of what you do. But can you talk about like why the details matter and how you break it down on like a street level for people so that they can understand it and make a better buying decision and obviously or hopefully work with you?
Yeah, and so one reason is, especially on the flood side, like I tell people, especially with AI now, and I got a little bit of this from George Thomas because I'm good friends with George B. Thomas, and he talks about personalization, humanizing the content.
Yes.
So that's great and all, but how do we personalize it and localize it? And I tell our marketing clients, I tell our team every day, look, we have one thing that nobody else has, and that's our data source. We've got the data on our clients. We know, like, premiums, coverage amounts. We know factors, all things that our competitor does not have. But we have to use that in the right way to build case studies. We have to use that in the right way to build self-assessment tools where we could give people pricing down to a street name, which is exactly what we've done.
So it's really getting hyper targeted.
So it's not just hyper targeted, but they're like, wait a minute, that's somebody I can trust. They're giving me real data and they're giving me real answers.
How does endless customers play into this whole equation? Because you talked a little bit about StoryBrand. You talked about George B. How does the endless customer system play into this equation as well for you?
The endless customers is really the frontliner of it. Yeah, we've got StoryBrand that built in as well, but we're going back to, for example, we use the endless customers GPT almost every day because one reason is I'm an endless customers coach. And so when we work with our team and all that, and I've read the book 62 times, and it sits on each one of my team members' desks, almost like a Bible.
Wow. Wait, hold on. You've read Endless Customers, the book, 62 times. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Wow. Why have you read it so many times? What keeps you?
Because I always take something else back from it.
No kidding.
I find another nugget, especially when it comes to pricing page. When I'm working with a client, I'm going through looking at the pricing page example that Marcus has in the book, going off of that, analyzing that. This is a different type of brand that maybe we've worked with before. And looking at this pricing page, how is this changing with AI? How's the customer experience changing? And all these different things. Are we using this page to build trust? Are we being transparent enough here? It's a whole checklist we kind of go through there.
And you said, too, that it's on all of your employees' desks as well. So you bought a copy for every employee.
When they come on board with us, before they're even their first day, they have to read StoryBrand and they have to read Endless Customers because we want them to know that it's not just a piece of the culture, it's a way of life.
It's a way of life. I really like that. And what made you, or we talk about this a lot here on the show, and we've talked about this in person too, Chris, where leadership and buy-in from leadership, it starts at the top and trickles down throughout the whole organization, right? Where was the light bulb moment for you, or when did you first discover Endless Customers? What was that journey like for you?
I discovered Endless Customers back in 2018.
Okay.
And I ran into I heard Marcus somewhere, and I started reading the book. And I kind of tell people, compare it to Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey doesn't teach something fancy. He teaches something simple, but 98% of people are overlooking it. They're trying to complicate it.
Right.
And that's kind of what I compare Endless Customers to. It's nothing fancy. It's no kind of brand new knowledge. It's something so simple that through the years we've made it so complicated that when we simplify it this way, we win, the customer wins.
That's really well said. It's true. I felt similarly when I read, it was originally the Ask You Answer, now evolved into Endless Customers. But the first time I read it, it was almost like everything just clicked. It was like, yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, of course you should be doing this. And I like that you said that marketing has gotten overcomplicated, and this is a way to simplify it. I think that's
just like the self-assessment tools. People in my industry still laugh at me about it. I said, look, our self-assessment tool I built 4.5 years ago generates 200 leads a month for us now, and we've got a state department that's going to be using on their websites embedded because of the trust that it's building.
Wow. You're getting 200 leads a month from a self-service tool.
Yep.
Wow. Can you talk a little bit more about self-service tools? So you have the self-assessment. What was that like implementing it? It sounded like people were a little hesitant, or maybe there was some apprehension, and clearly it's working. So.
Well, it still is. Now, look, we spent thousands of dollars building this thing. In fact, we built it on the trust theme inside HubSpot.
Nice.
And we had our developers build a custom module with it. And what this one really did was show, okay, people are wanting to know, is flood insurance going to be required as purchase? What's the estimated premium? How close to water are all these things? And look, originally, we had 10 different things in there we told them. But then the problem was it was too overwhelming. Okay, you've given me these 10 pieces of knowledge, of information, but what am I actually supposed to do with them? Mm-hmm. So instead what we did was we took it and we created 10 separate self-assessment tools with it.
Wow.
And then what we did, we went one step further and we pulled that data we were talking about in HubSpot, Then we started localizing the self-assessment tool. So if it's a Sugarland, Texas page, we've got a self-assessment tool on that page specifically for Sugarland.
Gotcha. So there's 10 tools, but then there's like all these different iterations depending geographically on where people are.
We built the foundation. We spent thousands of dollars doing so. Look, we spent all this money. Let's just clone it and tweak it a little bit. We don't have to reinvent it.
Right. Right. And what type of results are you seeing from that? You had said 200 leads a month, which is amazing, but how does that translate as far as like revenue and dollars? Can you share any of that with us?
I mean, that tool probably generates about $10,000 to $15,000 a month in revenue for us.
Wow. That's great. That's wonderful.
But the key thing was this. Think about this. Like a real estate agent may come to me at 10 o'clock and I said, hey, I really need this. I'm sitting down with a client. Great. We built this tool exactly on our website for this situation. In fact, keep it in your phone. You always have it available, and the information comes to you within 60 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, that's seamless. And then that way they're not bothering you at 10 o'clock at night.
They're not.
You're
and then
on
we
call.
can follow up with them the next day.
Yeah, that automation just really, it's great for two reasons. It's great because it's on your end, it's less work, but then also for your end users and your potential clients, it's a really intuitive way to build trust, and it's just a win-win for everybody. I love hearing that. So can you talk to me a little bit about going through the coaching program? Because I know you've been through our program. What was it like for people maybe that are thinking about working with a coach here at Impact and are reading Endless Customers or entertaining the idea of Endless Customers? What was it like for you and in your experience with it?
I would say for me, it was actually much easier because I'd spent so much time learning Endless Customers.
Okay.
But I will say that still at the end of the day, one of the biggest things that I had to learn was to be coachable.
Interesting. Okay.
And it took me a couple of years to truly understand what that meant.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that because I think of you as a sponge. Like I think of you as a constant avid learner and you're always wanting to try new things, but maybe that wasn't always the case.
Well, it was, but think about this. I like to call it the powdered butt syndrome.
Powdered butt
So
syndrome.
we'll call that.
Okay, cool. And what's that?
And I'll give you an example of this. So a friend of mine, he grew up in a Southern Baptist church. And he became the youth pastor. He became the pastor. He said the problem was a lot of the elder didn't respect me because I grew up in the church. They still saw me as this kid.
Okay.
They didn't see me as the lead pastor. And some call this the powdered butt syndrome. Hey, if I powdered your butt, you don't have a right to tell me what to do or guide me. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes as business owners, we have to get out of that to understand, hey, whether someone's been in it 2 weeks or 20 years, there's a lesson I can take from them.
Yeah. Yeah, Marcus says that a lot too. It's like you can be a preacher to the world, but in your hometown, it doesn't always work out the same way. So that's
I always tell our team, look, I don't care if you've been here 2 days. There's something I can learn from you, and there's something you can learn from me.
Nice.
And we have to understand that, and that's what I mean by coachable. In fact, I actually hired a coach to help me understand how to become more coachable.
Yeah. So
who's still a good friend of mine today?
Yeah. So you definitely find value in having a coach, it sounds like.
But, I've had, now probably 5 to 10 different YouTube coaches that I still have good relationships with. When I started going through StoryBrain, I hired 6 different StoryBrain coaches. One was a data mining coach. One was a messaging coach and all these different things. But they really helped me understand these different areas as I became a coach. Mm-hmm. Even as a coach, I still need a coach. Michael Jordan didn't stop getting a coach when he became an all-star.
That's right. That's such a great example too. That's a great one for me, especially because I grew up during the Jordan era, and he was definitely my hero. And when you think when someone's that good and at the top of their game, you think that's it. That's the pinnacle, but you don't realize behind the scenes all the coaching and all the training and how much effort goes into staying and maintaining that level. It's really fascinating. So it's cool to hear it that way. And I'm just curious too. So I know you're a coach now, but what was it like going through the coaching program with Impact?
So the receiving it was, great, especially the onboarding part was absolutely awesome. I've worked with Allison, I've worked with Mandy, I've worked with Ginger, I've worked with Janet, I've worked with Mary, I've worked with Vin. And what was really cool is that each one of them had a skill set, a different area. Like Vin, for example, wonderful in the back end on the websites. Same thing with Janet of, understanding, hey, what happens when a customer comes here? Mandy, phenomenal in the messaging.
Yeah.
Of truly understanding, hey, what pieces of content should we be, I'll call it disruptive content. What should we be producing that's being transparent, that's building trust? And I like to tell our team, impact versus activity. Are we doing this to check a box, or are we doing it because it makes a difference?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
And so as I went through that, and I've been on and off coaching with Impact now. In fact, I send each one of my team members through it for almost a year. It's been great. Even though I'm not in it as much as they are, I still sit in on a lot of the calls to see what I can learn.
And how does it affect your employees and your team?
They're spending twice as much on coaching as they are on my salary.
Wow.
And so to them, they say, man, they're really serious about my development.
Yeah. And how does that affect their day-to-day and the work that they do and what they bring to the table for you?
Well, one thing for them is they see how serious we are about it. Whether it's working with a marketing client, working on our flood side, because we have a marketing agency and we have our flood side. And they think to themselves, man, I got to be on the top of my game. One reason is, look at the amount of money they're spending to develop me. Even if I decide to leave one day and I tell them, look, you're going to leave one day. Either you're going to retire, you're going to quit, whatever. The purpose is that you came in more developed. You left more developed than you came in.
Yeah.
Whatever you decide to do, my goal is that you improve that through that process.
Yeah.
And then the goal is that they see this improvement, not every month, not every week, but every day. All right, how can I improve? How can I help our clients improve? How can I help those light bulbs come on? And as these skills continue to develop, and I'll give you an example. I hired my content manager. My nephew's my content manager now part-time, about 2.5 years ago. Stayed with us part-time for a few months. Actually did some coaching with Kerry Weston, who's a big Endless Customers advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he came on full-time about just over a year ago now, he started Endless Customers training almost right off the bat. And I really feel like that made the massive difference for him on success. He get it from me, and I can help guide him, but it's like coaching your kids.
Right.
They're not going to listen to you, but they're going to listen to someone else, even if it's the exact same thing you're telling them.
Powdered butt, right?
Yeah. And so it's going through, and even when Will was here with the HubSpot part, we were taking all these different aspects. When we went to Endless Customers, what was really cool is they understood, hey, Chris, you and your team are really good at this, but you got some shortfalls here. So let's take a package and let's put it together that's really right for your team.
Yeah.
This is not a plug and play, but maybe you need one coaching session a month on messaging, but maybe you need 3 on HubSpot. That's okay. In fact, I spent 3 months doing sales coaching with Allison, and she helped me rebuild our new business pipeline. Then I took it to our developers, and we started to develop that whole process with AI and everything else.
You've obviously have a lot of buy-in when it comes to Endless Customers and the coaching program and implementing this in your business. Can you talk a little bit about how your clients have reacted to all this content and just to the positioning and the way that you're building trust with them and what it's done for your business overall?
Yeah, we started a marketing agency, I don't know, about 1.5 years ago. We didn't have this huge goal of just growing this thing. We take on a couple clients. I started a company called Niche Your Business, and the whole purpose there is we help people build niches after spending a decade building a niche. And as our clients are starting to meet with us, they're overwhelmed. Hey, I don't know where to start. And what they discover, and I show them as I look, you're sitting on a gold mine. And they're like, what's that? I said, your customers' data. I said, your customers are telling you what they want. You're just not listening. And so I'll give you an example. We went through the CRM for one of our clients, and they had 17,384 questions. Not a single one of them had been answered on their website. And I said, phone calls, emails, whatever. I said, your customers are telling you the concerns, the issues they're having. Let's vanguard this. And I'll take this back to the flood side. If a customer comes to us, hey, I got a loan closing coming up. Our problem was we were addressing that at the sales process. It was delaying it 2 weeks, 3 weeks sometimes. Mm-hmm. Well, now when a form is filled out and tell us there's a loan closing coming up, now we immediately have a video. We have a blog that's going out to them explaining insurance cost and closing cost. And we've immediately now taken that issue off the table before it becomes an issue.
Wow.
And that's the same thing we teach our clients is, look, we got to find a way, these issues that are delaying your sales process, we've got to understand where in each one of the, what I call the trust funnels, where does each piece of content belong? That you're continuing to get these, what I call micro yeses. So when the customer gets to the end of the yellow brick road and it's time for them to make a decision, it's a no-brainer for them because the way you've built trust through content. And I like to compare it to this. We find this fancy store. It's got this awesome storefront. Mm-hmm. But you walk in, there's no shelves. You're leaving. Well, those shelves are what I call content storage. And the products on those shelves are pieces of content. So how do we navigate the customer down the right aisles to get to the checkout the way they need to, giving them the things they need and the things they want?
That's a great analogy. I love that. I'm gonna steal that. That's really good. It's true though. You want to try to build trust building content, and you can use this through self-service tools, assignment selling, all these different vanguards and ways of doing it, like you've been saying, that's going to help guide people towards making a good buying decision that they can feel confident in and that they're not going to have buyer's remorse from, right?
And I'll tell you this, the biggest challenge to us, this hasn't generated 2 leads for me. And I think from a marketing standpoint, sometimes what we have to remember is that marketing costs really should be a fixed cost. We have to understand, look, I may not be able to track exactly 2 leads from this because, look, in today's world, attribution is very hard to track. But what I've got to understand is these small pieces made up the pie. And I have a client that came here, they said, man, Chris, we're so busy. We just can't keep up. We don't know what to do. Is it my YouTube channel? Is it my Instagram? I said, it's all of it. I said, because each one of these pieces play a different role in the customer journey. And as we take the right approach there, this is going to continue to happen. It's not because we had this huge piece of the pie, but these small pieces that we were doing along the way kind of help form the right pie for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So for our listeners and viewers out there, what would you say to them if they, like, let's say they have a complex item that they're selling, similar to you, like the insurance piece. Maybe there's a complex service line or product or whatever it is. How could they make it easier for buyers to understand and have confidence? What advice would you give them?
Well, the first thing I'd tell them to do is this. Let's remove the knowledge. Let's remove the part about you being, have 20 years of experience in all this. That's what I call the curse of knowledge. And let's put yourself into the shoes of the consumer. And I want you to do 2 things. I want you to go to a service called promptcowboy.ai. And what Prompt Cowboy AI does is it takes a lazy prompt and it makes it a really good prompt. And then I want you to go over to Gemini or ChatGPT. We prefer Gemini right now. And I want you to start having a conversation. Here's a catch, though. I don't want you typing it into it. I want you speaking to it because it's conversational search. The way we speak to things is completely different than how we type things. And that helps us understand a few things. First of all, it helps us simplify it because we're having a natural conversation. And we can also understand how our customers are searching for things on their phone. And so we started to have this conversation. Sometimes I do this 15, 20 minutes. And I go back and forth with the AI. Then we come to an agreement. And this is exactly how I rebuilt my new renewal pipeline. It helped me discover gaps I didn't think about. Pieces of content that I needed. Properties I needed. And I think that's where it does a really good job. But we have to treat it the right way there. We have to treat it like a team member, like a VA. And I tell people, look, when you brought a team member on, did you assume they knew everything at once? No, and that's the failure we make with AI. We assume that it's going to be a copy and paste. It's not. It's a team member that we have to continue to develop over time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think it's something you have to continue to work on and develop. And like anything with experience, you get better with it. But you made a very valid point in what you just said there. And I've been noticing this too, whether it's Gemini, GPT, whatever you're using, when you talk to it, it's different than when you type. It really is. Like the outcomes, the conversations you have, it definitely changes depending on how you're using it. And I would definitely suggest talking to it as well.
And people go, well, what's your favorite tool? And I said, let's throw the tools out the window. I said, we need to pay attention to frameworks. I said, you need a good AI framework. And I said, I'll tell you what our 4-part framework is. And that is solve problems, remove frictions, improve the customer experience, and improve the employee experience. If it checks those 4 boxes, then it's getting implemented because everybody's coming, I want to use AI to do this. Look, this might be AI. This might be automation. It may be human interaction. Or it may be a combination of all 3. I said, but it needs to solve problems, remove the frictions we're having, and it needs to improve the customer experience. And I'll kind of give you an example on this. Our team was spending, 20 minutes sending out payment links per deal. It was very frustrating to them. So what I did is I went to our developers. Instead of them spending 20 minutes, as long as the data was in HubSpot, I had that it hit one button, and it sent the payment link to the customer. When the customer made the payment link, it came back to HubSpot. It automatically HubSpot told them exactly what to do next. That was a friction that we removed with AI.
Nice.
Another example, if a deal comes in through one of our web forms, and maybe it's missing a little information, like a year built, square footage, and all that, we built an AI agent that goes and finds that data. It fills it in so our team doesn't have to do that. So now our team is not going back and forth with a customer for 2 days trying to get missing information.
That's really cool. Very cool. So where do you see Endless Customers and your journey with Endless Customers taking you into the future?
As I said, for me, it's really about coaching. I'm finishing my master's in AI at Wake Forest right now, and I'm finishing my master's in digital marketing at Wake. I'm I'll actually be going on to Georgia Tech to work on a higher level AI and consumer behavior after that. But to be honest, I say endless customers is a way of life. People think, and look, I get a lot of pushback with AI, story brand, endless customers. It's all going away. No, you're just applying it wrong. It's never going away. Mm-hmm. And I said, are websites changing? Yes. I said, the website used to be the puzzle. Now it's a piece of the puzzle. And we have to understand that. Look, and I'll give you an example. Someone might start at my Instagram. Instagram takes them to ChatGPT. Then ChatGPT shows them my YouTube video. Then my YouTube video takes them to my website. So when they get to my website, they might be ready to buy it because the trust I built in those other things. Well, before, it may have been them going to my website, going through 50 different pieces of content before I built that trust. Mm-hmm. And so it all still goes back to the framework of endless customers. The framework's not changing.
Yeah. The fundamentals will always be there. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways when I listen to Marcus talk and when we talk to new potentials is trust is a principle. So at the end of the day, whatever medium you're using, the website, AI, whatever tools, those are just the tools in your tool belt, but trust is the root of all that. And
that's why I tell our team, I said, look, you've got to have the foundations and you've got to have the critical thinking skills to know when AI may be wrong or something like that. And I said, so many people that they call it AI slop, they just throw it out there. They don't look at it. They don't know the question. SEO may be a good example. All these people doing SEO now, but if you don't have the foundations, you don't know when it might be wrong, and it will be wrong.
It will definitely be wrong.
A new employee would be wrong.
Yes, it's not perfect, and you have to audit it. You have to look at it, and you should never just copy and paste out of GPT or whatever you're using and just send it. That is definitely not what we recommend here. So I couldn't agree with you.
And one of the things I love about, and I'll tell you this real quick, we've actually moved the majority from ChatGPT to Gemini, is the way we've been able to build gems. But I tell people, look, remember, Gemini's connected to Google Search. It's connected to Google Ads. It's connected to YouTube. It's connected to your Google Drive. It's connected to that Google ecosystem. And let's be honest, they have probably the strongest ecosystem out there because they're out there.
Yeah, they really do. Good point. All right. Well, this is my favorite part of the show. We covered a lot of ground. We had a great conversation, Chris. What's the one thing you would want people to take away from everything we talked about today? If you could only say one thing that was like the key takeaway, what would that be? Customer
experience.
Okay.
I want you to put yourself in your customer's shoes every day. That's what I want you to do. And I want you to say, all right, would I buy a product from this company? Simply ask you, and I heard somebody say this when they got a review from Delta Airlines. It said, would you hire the CSR that you dealt with? And they said, that's the only review question you have to ask. It's either yes or no. And if it's no, then you know exactly when they get a no back. So just think about that as you're going through this. Would I buy a product from this company? Being your company.
Mm-hmm. I love that. That's a great shout for everybody out there watching, listening. You gotta ask yourself that question. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your insights and for your time and for sharing your story with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have to have you back on the show. And am I going to see you at Endless Customers Live in Chicago next year?
I'm planning to be there. I'm about to have my 5th round of eye surgeries next week.
Okay.
And so I'm planning to be there in March.
All right. Well, I wish you the best.
I'm trying to bring my director of education and my content manager with me.
Awesome. Well, I hope to see you there, my friend. And for everybody out there watching and listening, this is Endless Customers. I'm your host, Alex Winter. We will catch you on the next episode.